Welcome, everybody, to the Fraser Chronicles podcast. And today we have a special guest on the show. Name is Janet Schultz. And Ms. Schultz is a business owner of Blue Jay Consulting. She also is a former teacher. And Ms. Schultz, if you don't mind, the floor is yours. Tell the listeners who you are and give us some insight. Yeah, the floor is yours.
All right. Thank you for having me, David. Um, my name is Janet Schultz. I live in a small town, Concord, North Carolina, near Charlotte. So we're sharing almost neighbors there. And I am a former special ed teacher, and currently I am a social entrepreneur. Which means I own a business for profit that addresses a social need, which is the addressing the high unemployment rate of those on the spectrum. In 2012, I started a commercial cleaning company out of a need to support myself and generate an income. And having been in the teaching world for some time and having a taste of helping my then husband in his construction company, kind of fed into my entrepreneurial spirit, which I had from way back in my young adulthood. I would dabble in different home-based businesses, but nothing really ever stuck. But I definitely have that personality. And so when it came time that I needed to think about how am I going to support myself and been given, a life-changing event such as divorce, um, I knew I knew that I couldn't go back in the classroom. I would be like a bird in a cage. I saw how I was in my zone with certain things, having a business or being a part of a business, and I was able to act out and implement my skill set and found out things that I was good at that I really didn't know before. So I thought, okay, what am I going to do? What kind of business am I going to start? So I decided, based on my experience as a single mother in my first marriage, I raised my girls and I taught school and I cleaned houses on the side. I'm good at cleaning houses. I'm good at cleaning, very detailed, but I don't like it. But what I do like is having my own business, being a small business owner. So I thought, okay, I'm going to start a cleaning company. And you have to understand that during this time, my head was spinning with all kinds of different things coming at me and um, very trauma related. But that's where I was. And so I started a small office cleaning company. Small office because that fits my personality. Business owners, I would think that they would agree that a business takes on the personality of the owner. And my personality is that I would prefer to go to a small hardware store over a large one. I prefer to go grocery shopping to a small community grocery store over the Super Target or Super Walmart. And so that was kind of fashioned after my personality, very detail oriented. So that's how that got started. So I started that in 2012 and then grew very fast because I would email and put the word out that I was doing this, and my friends, they could read between the lines and see that Janet's going through something, so we need to help her. So they rallied around me, and I have a lot of connections. And so I was able to tap into those and grew very fast. I knew what it was like to start a business, so I had some savvy about that. I like to think that I'm pretty business savvy. It just kind of comes natural to me. And I am a risk taker. So I am a very risk taker and adventurous. So for me, I just jump right in there. And not having all the answers, not everything was laid out, but it would all come together over the course of 9 years. And so today, and I can fill in some missing holes if you want, but But today, in 2021, I sold that business. It was successful enough that I sold it. And one of the key elements that was attractive to the buyer was that I did hire people with autism. And I now have a consulting company that helps other people do what I did in their community. Begin a commercial cleaning company that employs people predominantly with autism. So over those 9 years, I developed from uh, a business in a box, is what I call it. It's a prototype. And I knew, David, in the very beginning that I wanted to align myself socially with a cause and be a social enterprise, a business for profit, and that addresses a social need. But I didn't know what that was. But and then even in the beginning, I knew that this business that I was starting was something I wanted to be able to duplicate so that other people can do what start one, a franchise, if you will. But again, I didn't know what any of that would look like. But God's just kind of put everything into place, and you can look back and see how He connected. All the dots are connected, and even the name Blue Jay, blue in the beginning was is a color synonymous with clean, and J stands for Janet, my name, so it has no reference to the bird. But blue, a year and a half into the company's existence, is when I began to consider looking at people with autism as having the skill set that I was looking for in a detail driven cleaning company. And that's when I started looking into opening up uh, my company to have others with disabilities, if you will, for lack of a better word, that thought differently than us, is how we like to look at it. People with autism or have a parallel track of thinking, and brought and allowed them the opportunity to interview, because this is not for charity. You have to interview just like everyone else. And if you got the job, then so that became the social cause that I aligned myself with. And as a social enterprise, I believe, I can only speak to myself, but I believe that social enterprises are more up and coming, because we not only align ourselves, I don't only align myself with hiring people with autism and combating the high unemployment rate that they face, but also I'm socially conscious about how I can make an impact into the community. So it is definitely a cleaning company, but it's a cleaning company with purpose. And our clients love the clients that I had, love the fact that they could come alongside of us and join us in that movement.
Awesome. And it seems like you've been through a lot. Like if it makes sense when you were talking, it just kind of was showing that you've been through some things, but you didn't let those things hold you back. You kind of pressed forward and went forward. So can we talk a little bit about how, let's just say, a person right now that's listening might be saying, "Hey, I'm currently going through a divorce and I want to get into the business aspect. Maybe, I was a stay-at-home mom or a stay-at-home dad. Now I'm trying to find out now I want to move into something or I want to get into something, start my own business. What are some advice or some tips you would give them to kind of help them along the way?
Well, I do not recommend for anyone to start a business in trauma. Okay. But that's where I was. So that's kind of how that happened for me. But to give advice to people, I suggest that you seek out support groups and get healthy. At least start getting healthy as you are thinking about starting a business or what you're going to do for the rest of your life. How are you going to make, and this is my mindset, David, how are you going to make this pain something? And that was what drove me. I've been through a lot of stuff from childhood, two marriages, un, you know, a lot of trauma in between. And I was determined that what I went through is gotta count for something. And I'm 66 now. And it's taken me a lifetime to get healthy. It's not been probably in the last having Blue Jay and hiring people with autism. God used that experience to change me more than it did to help them. So it was a healing process for me. And those people on the spectrum, they were so gracious and understanding and patient with me because I wasn't always the easiest to get along. I was going through a lot of stress because I started with less than nothing, which again, I don't recommend for anyone starting a business. You have to have capital, but I didn't have anything. Again, that's where I was. So that's where God met me. And so, but look at what happened, what he did from that.
Right.
So I wanted to give up so many times, so many times. It was so hard. And every time I tried to give up or quit, I would get a phone call. Someone wanted me to give them a quote to clean. So at every step, when I wanted to give up and I was at my wit's end about it, something would happen to turn me around, to keep going. And so I guess what my advice would be is to seek out support groups. And there's a good one, divorce recovery, and then also has divorce recovery for kids too, because it's a family issue. And I used to teach it at two different churches. I taught that, so I know the program. But you need to seek out a support group, someone other than your family, because they're too involved. And it helps to talk to people who are going through it. And give yourself time because for every year that you're married, they say 5 years, wait until you get into another relationship. It takes a long time, and a lot of people just jump right in there and when they're even separated and start dating because they have friends to say, "Oh, you need to get out there and start dating again." No, because you're still fragile, especially if you're the one who is the recipient of an unwanted divorce. If this was thrust upon you and it just threw you a curveball and you didn't see it coming, you're not ready for a relationship. You need to get healthy. And there and it's going to be worth it because if you jump right into a relationship, chances are that relationship is not going to work out. And if you got children involved, let me tell you, blended families is the hardest relationship there is. So you've got to make sure that you heal and you don't bring that baggage or pain into another relationship. And so, how you can get over something like this or any type of pain, start as you're healing, start thinking about how you might can help or empower someone else. And with my company, Blue Jay, my cleaning company, and think about what skills come naturally to you. What are you naturally gifted with?
Right.
And so and that's what you have to look at. And so and then so my business, not I was empowering people with autism, but at the same time, God was using this business to empower me. And it's how I healed. It really is. And therapy. I went to therapy too. I'm
Mhm.
fortunate enough. I have an unusual situation that, but I did go to therapy of someone I did not know, but that was not my family. But my daughter, my youngest daughter, is a therapist. And so she knows my history better than anybody. She was a part of it for many years, and so she's been very helpful to me as well. But um, I just you have to give yourself time and patience, and don't and try to remember not to listen to your friends who really don't know what's going on within you.
Oh, yeah.
Because yeah, and so definitely, and so get out there and just start healing. And if you want to start a business, there's power in being an entrepreneur. I mean, I cannot go back and work for someone else. Once you've worked for yourself, you got a taste.
Mhm.
I cannot go back to work for someone else. I've tried and it just doesn't work out. I guess I like to be more in control. Maybe it's a control issue. I don't know, but in anyway, if you also do start a business, think about bringing on a partner, maybe someone. I didn't have a partner, but that certainly would have been helpful to have someone that had a financial backing to come alongside of me and we share in that profit. That would have been very helpful. So that's what I tell people that are, maybe interested in buying the business in a box. We let them know about how much capital you'll need. Everything is laid out in the business in a box. It's like a nuts and bolts. Here's how you do it kind of thing. And because I believe with all my heart that my job and my purpose and all this was to develop the prototype, was to develop the idea into what it is today. Because I am selling an idea. And then because the people that buy the business in a box, and I do have someone in Greensboro that purchased it for her and her son, who he is autistic, and it's a really cool story in there. But her business is going to actually be better than mine was, even though I sold it and it was successful enough because she's not going to have a learning curve. She's not going to have that reinventing of the wheel. She's going to benefit from my mistakes and all that I went through in developing the business in a box over the course of 9 years. So, so that's kind of like the role. Yes, I have a business, and the business is called Blue Jay Consulting, and Blue Jay Business in a Box is underneath that umbrella. But more than anything else, I'm living out my purpose.
Yes.
And if you can find that, you're a fortunate person. And look, I found it out at age 66, so it's never too late.
Yes. And that's big there that you said that, because so many people today are trying to find purpose, right? And that's just, I think that's the gist of a lot of people. Any age group is trying to find, what is my purpose? What am I here to do? And
Yeah.
sometimes it goes through, like you were saying earlier, the trauma. We sometimes have to get out of those things that we're in, and not all the time, like you said. Sometimes it's given to you, and you're like, I didn't ask for this, or I didn't know this was going to happen. So that it comes through in that nature. When we talk about the business, I'm sure there are some success stories with working with individuals who have autism or disabilities. Um, what are some of the success stories that you've seen since you started hiring these individuals early on in the business? What are some of the success stories?
All right, I've got several. And when people go to our website, which I hope you'll put a link to,
Yes.
uh, that they'll get to read some success stories and see the faces that go with them. But I'm going to tell you a success story of Eric. Eric was my first person on the spectrum that I hired. Now, I am of the belief and philosophy that I want to be raising adults. Specifically, I'm all about raising men, okay, to be men. And by and large, people on the spectrum are male. I did have some females, but anyway, Eric. So Eric, I was told, was not able to work by himself, that he needed a job coach, which I am totally against because I didn't accept that. I believe, I have seen, it's been my experience that we as a system are producing adults who have become cue dependent and not being able to problem solve for themselves because too often they're not given enough wait time, they process longer. So I am not of the premise that when you're graduated from high school and now you're an adult man, that I'm going to be there holding your hand. I'm not going to be coddling you, okay? And that I'm not going to be telling you to give you a command and then pointing or giving you some type of cue to do it. Do you follow what I'm saying?
Follow 100%. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So I am all about independence. I'm all about giving you the room to fail. And it's not a bad word. As one parent told me that that's a bad word. So their child did not last very long. Um, because sometimes the parents got in the way,
Yeah.
you know. So anyway, so Eric, those job coaches were not even allowed to come on my job site because we do our own training. It's on the job training, and we job shadow. So that's how we interview because they don't do their best self doesn't come forward when you're like sitting across from each other and asking him questions, you know. So anyway, he made it through. And Eric was living with his mom, and she contracted cancer. And oftentimes it was difficult for Eric to get to work. He would need transportation. Sometimes I could take him because sometimes I was still cleaning, you know, and I would clean with Eric on the job. And so I would, you know, go get him. But on this particular day, and granted, Eric had been working for us for a while. And he started out, this was his very first job, which is true for all of them. And he was making a minimum wage, came to me with no experience. He was a team leader at this point. He had grown in his career. And I provided and developed that kind of culture because any business has their own culture. So we were nurturing independence, nurturing thinking for yourself, nurturing responsibility, independence, all of these things. So, and I would model that type of behavior as well. So Eric got to work. I can't remember exactly but how I found it out, but I went to where Eric was working, probably to check on him. And I said, Eric, how did you get to work today? Because I knew that at times it was difficult. He said, I took the bus. I said, you took the bus? He said, yeah. I said, well, Eric, how did you know what bus to take? He said, I got on the computer and I looked up the different routes. Now, you have to know a little bit about Eric. Eric does not talk much. I was told Eric needed someone, a job coach, to get him started on his job. But when Eric did talk, it was profound. There's a lot more going on up here. Just because they're nonverbal doesn't mean they don't understand everything that you say and they don't have something to contribute. So I said, Eric, wow, you know, because he had to do a couple of interchanges, you know, on buses. And because we were so lean in the beginning financially, we had one vacuum cleaner, David, that we use on several jobs. And so Eric usually took the vacuum cleaner with him because he was on most of the jobs. He was given a lot of responsibility. Why? Because he showed me he could handle it.
Right.
And so, I trusted him. You see, I trusted him. I expected of him until proven otherwise. And so he took that vacuum cleaner with him on the bus. So that's just an example. And another Eric story is that because Eric was on a lot of jobs, because Eric was given a lot of responsibility, I could trust Eric. Eric was what he was the keeper of the keys. He had a big wad of keys that he was responsible for at different job sites. And because we don't live in a bubble, and I didn't just hire people with autism, we had all types of people. Eric was a team leader of a team that was at a fairly large job, and that team member wanted the keys. So she texts me and tells me that Eric won't give her the keys. And I said, well, Eric shouldn't give you the keys because he's the keeper of the keys. You see, and Eric didn't give her those keys either. she found resistance in a nice way. He didn't get aggressive or anything, but he let it be made known that no, these are my keys and I'm responsible for them, and you're not having these keys. You see, she just automatically assumed that Eric didn't have the level of intelligence or responsibility to be given that responsibility. But I let her know, and I stood behind Eric, that he does. And he does have responsibility for those keys, and he was right not to give them to you. So, and then another story I'll share, and then I'll stop with that, but is Adam. Now, Eric stayed with me about 2.5 years, but Eric's mother did die, and he had to go live with his sister in South Carolina. So he left us. But when he left, it was a void. It took us a long time to recover from Eric because no one could really fill his shoes. When Eric was on the job, I did not worry. Because people with autism, the cleaning company was playing to their strengths, their skill sets. They're routine driven. They get better with time. They have a great work ethic. They're dependable, reliable. They don't come to the work site with drama or attitudes. So you don't have that going on. And they will, so me having broken down the steps on how to clean different things, clean a bathroom, clean a sink, clean a mirror, this is how you vacuum even. Everything is broken down into task analysis. They follow that, and it becomes memory, and they carry it out, which in turn makes us a consistent cleaning company, which is a niche besides the small office uh, thing piece. Was that because a lot of cleaning companies, they start off really well, and then after 3 or 4 months, they kind of wane off. So, but we were able to stay consistent. We all cleaned the same way. And so they find it difficult not to follow the steps once they learn it. And so Adam was in his 20s. He was sitting at home, and he watched his younger brother go to work and come back. And I know this story because they told me this story, that one day Adam said, I wish I had a job that I could go to. And I found out about Eric, I mean, not Eric, but Adam, probably from my church, I think. But Adam, again, he went through the process. This was his very first job that he had. And I knew from the beginning that Adam, he was going to be with us a while until he felt like he was ready to springboard into his dream job, which was working for Federal Express. So while he worked for us, he started out at minimum wage, first job, no experience. And again, he grew in his career. He became a team leader. He also worked on jobs by himself, as did Eric. And he gained enough confidence to get his driver's license, which is very unusual for people on the spectrum. And so that was a godsend because that was a big need that we had. And so Adam was able to take not only himself, but other members of the team to and from their jobs. Mm. So after, I guess, about 2.5 years, also, Adam was ready to launch out into the workplace, and he's working for Federal Express today and doing very well. Yeah. So given the opportunity, you can see just from those two stories how empowering it is to give someone a chance to work.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am. That's why because those stories are not always told. We don't see
Yeah.
those stories every day. I mean, this if it wasn't for this interview here, I would have never known about individuals with autism being successful because a lot of times in the workplace, there's not a lot of them. And if they are, they're not in the positions where they're in the front. They're always in positions, maybe in the back or in a position
Mm-hmm.
where nobody kind of deals with them, if it makes sense. So to hear that, and that those success stories really blesses my soul and my heart because you don't get those stories every day.
Well,
And
I'm glad to hear that.
yes, and
Yeah.
that really does something to me emotionally because
Mm-hmm.
we all just need opportunity. And I
Yep.
think sometimes we get so caught up in what we're looking for. This is what the job wants. This is what it inquires. But we never think about giving someone the opportunity, maybe because they look different or they don't think how we think. But we can teach them, as you said, training on the job is better than someone sitting in front of you and you're asking questions and they're giving you feedback. And how do I really know if I don't ever get with them and show them? So for you to walk us through that whole process is amazing and a joy to hear about. As we get more into this episode, um, I want to give you the opportunity first to tell people where you are that might be listening and saying, "Hey, I think I want to get into that ramification of franchising. Maybe I want to get with the organization like yours who caters to that organization, maybe that have disabilities. I mean, a lot of franchises don't really they don't really cater to that, and you have the experience to help someone who might be saying, "Hey, I have some individuals who have some disabilities. How do I go through that process?" And you'll be the one to help them. So where can they find you and then those things like that?
Well, first thing, go to my website. That's a great place to start. It's blue, the color blue, the letter J, cleaningfranchise.com. bluejcleaningfranchise.com. Everything is on there. It's very direct, easy to read, streamlined, that you can see. You can hear about, read about my story. You can read about the inspiring stories. You can see how we operate, how the business in a box works. And even though the word franchise, I don't want that to scare anybody, but it's in there just because that's the domain name that we chose to buy. But it's actually not a franchise because it's very expensive to franchise. It's not only expensive for the person buying the franchise, but also the person who is trying to sell the franchise. And besides that, David, my market are people that are like special educators like me, people who want to make a social impact and create social change, family members of people that have autism. Autistic people themselves make great entrepreneurs. They can't afford a big thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars for a franchise.
Right.
So I know my market, and the point is to extend the mission beyond the Charlotte Concord area into everywhere else in the world because we're all faced in, people, there are people with autism everywhere. And they're all wanting to work, and so our web so um, the business in a box is at a value, price at a value that one can afford, and you become your own business owner. I don't get any royalties at all. So, because I'm a big believer in empowering people, so I want to be able to empower that business owner to be their own business owner and not have to worry about me getting a piece of it, you know. So I feel like that's a great offer
Oh yeah.
because as far as I know, there aren't things like that, like what we do, what I offer out there.
Right.
So pretty unique. So I would suggest getting on, being part of the, getting involved on the beginning end rather than at the end. Like I said, I have one that started in Greensboro, and she actually I met her 5 years ago.
Mm.
I was at a conference for Autism Society in North Carolina in Charlotte, and I was promoting. I've always talked about it, but not really promoted it big until the last year and a half. And so she saw me, at the booth I was at. She took my card. She was very interested. I don't remember meeting her, but last year she calls me out of the blue. And she's a librarian in Greensboro, and her son is autistic on the high functioning. He lost his job. He was fired
Mm.
at a job at the hospital because a lot of people with autism are misunderstood,
Right.
and people don't put in the effort to understand them and learn how to communicate. Because it's a different way of thinking. They see things from a different perspective. But she told me, she said, now we're ready. We're going to do this as a family. And she's not going to quit her day job. And that's another thing I need to offer to prospective business owners. Sometimes you need to keep your day job, as you're growing your business, and maybe 2 years into it, you would have gained enough income coming in and saved some capital that you were able to quit that day job and this become your full-time job. But just depends on how much your situation. But she told me, she said, Janet, I had that card on my table, and every day I would look at it and say, I'm going to call her one day. I'm going to call her one day. I'm going to call her one day. And she finally did, because David, where I was at with it, I was so disillusioned. As a visionary, and that's how I see myself, I've been given a vision that of what this is supposed to be like. Um, I just became so disillusioned. People, when they heard about it, oh, that's a great idea. Wow, but nobody would ever buy it. And so I just thought, well, maybe it is a good idea, but maybe it's just an idea I had, and, it's just going to stay in Charlotte and Concord. So I put it on the shelf. And then probably a couple of years, I put it on the shelf. And then she called. And when she called, that was my word that now's the time. And so she spurred me on. She encouraged me by that call to take it off the shelf and now really go gun ho in promoting it. And I've probably done this summer 20 podcasts. I mean, it's just been amazing. I've I've talked with people in Switzerland. I've talked with people in Canada a couple of times, people all over the world. And yes, they have people with autism there,
Yeah.
you know? And so it's just been amazing. So I feel like that now's the time. And so I'm not going to put it back on the shelf,
Awesome.
So it's going to take off. I just have to be patient.
Yeah. Patience. Yeah.
Yep. And I don't really like that word, but I have learned how to have it. And I know that I am where I am and where I'm supposed to be, doing what I'm supposed to be doing at this point in time. And I have to just, because I've given it my all. And I know it's bigger than me. So I certainly can't do it in my own strength. So I'm along for the journey.
Right. And as we get to a close, what does the future look like for you and business, the consulting? What does it look like?
Well, I sure hope that it looks like that I'll be traveling all over the place, helping people start Blue Jay cleaning solution companies in their community, because it is a community-based model. You live and work in your community. So I hope that I'll be doing that, consulting with people. Because see, I'm still a teacher. Once a teacher, always a teacher. And yes, I wasn't in the classroom with my cleaning company, but Blue Jay was, in a way, a type of classroom for me. And so I love helping people. I love showing them how to do something, and then once I show them how, then okay, you take it and go with it. And then I'm over here now to the next person. And then I get them and they're going. And then I'm over here to the next one. So that's kind of how I see myself being, kind of like a church planner. I'm a Blue Jay planner. So that's kind of what I'm doing. And that's you know, what I hope to be doing, in the future.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And I do want to, before we go, there is a correction they need to make, and it has to do with the divorce thing. I said it backwards. For every, say you're, so, okay, for every, you need to give yourself, all right, say for, the best thing to do is when do you think that you might be healed or be healthy in an emotional way to start thinking about a relationship or getting back into the dating scene? Okay. So certainly wait the year separation period. Okay. You're very vulnerable. You're still in pain. You're not thinking correctly, thinking clear. I had to have people thinking for me. If I didn't, I don't know where I'd be because I couldn't think clear. So definitely wait that year. But then say you're married for 5 years and then divorce happens. You were ready for a new relationship probably in 2. Say you're married for 20 years. You need to allow yourself 5 years. And people don't want to hear that. They want to they think, I'm going to get better, but I'm going to just jump right into another relationship. No, that is not the case. And very few of us, I didn't date at all when I got divorced first. I was married for 19 years. And when that all came upon me, I was homeschooling my girls. I was staying at home. Boy, did my life change after that, you know? Um, so I started raising them on my own. I was a single mother most of my life, I guess now. And raising them, they were 10 and 11. That was a hard time for kiddos anyway. All right. That's a very hard time. So I didn't date any of that time. I did not start thinking about dating until they went into college. And then I started thinking because my focus and energies went into being their mom, went into being a parent for them. You know,
Yeah.
my time would come again if I wanted it to. And it's a choice. But my first priority was to my girls. And so I guess I'm preaching now, but women, don't jump into a relationship, especially if you have children. I know you think you might need that helping hand. Honestly, look to your family, look to your church for support. Support is out there. So that's my sermon for the day.
And that's great advice because so many times we get so caught up in life, whether it's careers, whether it's entrepreneurship, that sometimes we don't really get that opportunity to focus on the things of importance. And you were able to, one, focus on that in your own life. Not only that, but then you were able to share how how it works when you focus on the priorities that need to be prioritized. And that's great because if you didn't, you probably wouldn't be sitting here talking about Blue Jay and all of the great things that have come from those things. And before I let you go, are you on social media, Facebook, Instagram, any of that, where somebody might say, hey, I want to be able to just reach out and just touch, if it makes sense? I say touch in a spiritual way. But they might want to say,
Yeah.
reach out and touch, and that's just getting, maybe DMing you, PMing you, saying, hey, I seen the interview, I seen this. Can you give me a little more guidance? Maybe that's what they're thinking.
Yeah. And I would love the chance to go and speak at, if you have a support group or if you have an event or whatever, I'll be glad to come and speak and address parents or family members or teachers, anything,
Yeah.
even if it's about divorce, because I have a lot of experience. And I used to teach those support recovery groups. So I have a lot of experience in life. Um, so anyway, yes, I'm on social media to answer your question. Blue Jay Cleaning, Instagram, the Blue Jay Cleaning Business in a Box, Facebook.
Gotcha. And is there anything else that you want to give out to the listeners before we close? Anything you want to just leave them with?
Only that entrepreneurship, it is risky, but there's freedom in that. And it also gives you choices. Don't be afraid. If you have an idea, run it by somebody. You know, someone told me a long time ago, and I've thought about this so much that she said, if you have, and this was like not even, this was when I was a single mom the first time. She said that if you have an idea, she said, an idea usually comes from God. She said, buy only what you need and use what you have. And so I've always thought about those things. So if you have an idea, don't discount it. Start believing in yourself and in your idea. Talk about it, talk it up to someone
Yeah,
because there may just very well be something to it.
exactly. That's deep. That's deep there. You said a lot. And I hope and I know that a lot of listeners will take a lot from this, from a lot of the inspiration, and motivation. Not sure if you realize there was a lot of inspiration, a lot of motivation.
No,
Get
I,
somebody started, and moving forward. I mean, you gave a lot of information that if I was listening to it and I was listening to it, I know in my mind there's a lot of inspiration and motivation that's just ringing my bells over here in my head. Like, you said a handful of things that a lot of people need to hear, and it needs to get in front of, because you are gonna change somebody's life just off of the things that you said. I don't know if you realize that or not, but just sitting here and just in dialogue and listening to you, you change some of the things in my mind. And I don't know if you understand that, or if you realize that, but
no, no, and that's good because it keeps me humble, you know, and thank you for saying all that. I really do appreciate you saying that, and it does nothing but encourages me
man,
because anytime you put yourself out there, you're being vulnerable.
yes,
And
ma'am.
that's a scary place to be, but that's the only place you're going to find things that happen,
Yes,
you know. But one of the things I did learn by having worked alongside of by employees on the spectrum, because they showed me so much grace, so much understanding, so much patience, and throughout this whole thing, that I owe everything to them. Without them, this would not even be a thing. But they taught me humility. They didn't know they were doing it, but because of that grace, because of that understanding, because of that patience, I was able to be humbled. So I've that's one of the other things I've learned over the course in my old age. But it's never too late that in this last season of my life, I'm going to hopefully look back, and whatever I went through prior is going to be just fleeting. It's not really going to matter anymore, because what's ahead of this last season is going to be, hopefully, as they say, the best is yet to come, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't want it just to be a cliche. I want to I want it to be actually something I experience because I have goals too.
Yes, ma'am.
You know, I have goals and I've yet to reach those. And so that's how I believe Blue Jay is gonna allow me is the catalyst and the conduit of change and how I'm gonna achieve those goals that I've set for myself.
Yes, ma'am. And I want to first, and I want before we close, I want to thank you for taking time out of your day to come and chat it up with me here on the Fraser Chronicles podcast. Not only that, and give my listeners some great advice that I'm sure they have not heard yet. And I'm sure that when they hear this, it's going to be shared all over social media and it's going to be shared just everywhere. And I'm sure that Blue Jay will get some calls. You'll be doing the things that you would like to be doing. And you know, God's willing. Keep God first.
Yes.
That's everything to me, keeping God first. Because I've seen God do so many different things beyond our imaginable minds can think, fathom, or just our hearts could desire.
Mm-hmm.
So I know, you know, that things are going to come, you know, and keep praying, keep praying.
Okay, I will.
That's where I've seen a lot of my success come from, and a lot of things that I've prayed for come to fruition because I understand that, like, being patient, and like you said, you don't like. I don't like patience.
Oh no.
As soon as I want something, it's on demand. It's happening. It's going. But I realize sometimes being patient is great because we get it at the right time. It's not the
Yep.
wrong time because sometimes we get it too early. We might mess it up, and then we'll be like, God, give it to me one more time. And I've been there, done that. So I
Mm-hmm.
patience
Yeah.
is everything.
Thank you, David, so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Yes, ma'am. And if y'all are out there and you're listening to this episode, make sure you share it with somebody. Make sure you really, really go back and listen to what was really given because it's a lot of information, but it's great information. And I think the more you listen to it, the more you start becoming one with the information. Don't forget to follow Fraser Chronicles on all social media platforms.